You do things your own way. You make things your own, just the way you like them. Your bank should do that for you too. The Bank of Clark is the bank for that. From banking to lending to wealth management, when you need financial services built just for you, we're the bank for that. Find out what banking designed just for you is all about. Call 1-800-650-8723. Visit your local Bank of Clark branch today or go to bankofclark.bank. That's bankofclark.bank. We're the bank for that. Member FDIC.
You're gonna need a bigger boat. So serious.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the InSession Film Podcast.
Welcome to the new podcast presented by the female film critics of InSession Film. We are speaking, we love movies, we are women in session. Yes, hello everyone, welcome. You know, we actually have a unique lineup here tonight. Amy Thomason is back with us at the Women in Session podcast, our drama teacher by day, InSession film critic by night. Hello, Amy. This is going to be confusing because we were talking about Amy Adams. Amy Thomason is here. Next week, Amy Smith will be here. We're going to spread out some of the Amy Adams love here. Tonight, we're probably just going to be a little more of the lighthearted things, the comedies, the fun stuff. Shadan Larki is here. She has her fancy little check mark still on Twitter, right, Shadan? Two Amy Adams lovers are here. So I'm just going to jump right in because Shadan said that she had not seen Junebug, but Amy, the wonderfulness of Junebug. So I said, wait, I have to press record. Technology needs to cooperate. So Amy, tell us about Junebug.
Junebug showcases Amy Adams in a lovely way, as do all Amy Adams films. She plays Ashley, this very young, she might be about 20, pregnant girl, and she's fascinated by her, I think it's her baby's daddy's brother's new wife. And she's just has this innocent and sweetness about her. And she's charming. And I believe that was her first Oscar nomination. So good for her.
Yes. You know, I didn't even say myself. I'm sorry. I'm Kristin Battestella. I always forget to say myself because I just want to get right into the conversations. Yeah. We start to ramble and I say, no, okay, I have to hit record. Now it's funny because when we said, how are we going to do this? Because there's so much to discuss. And we said, well, we'll divvy it up. And her career is not split between early comedy and later drama. It actually is kind of always even and back and forth. But she did have a lot of early little TV kind of bit parts and little early comedy moments. I love Drop Dead Gorgeous. I don't think it was understood at the time, but it's such like a mess, like satire of pageants. But Amy Adams is not necessarily the big person in there. And then there's moments like Catch Me If You Can, but then she really comes out with Junebug. And it's funny, everything kind of hits at once. I mean, there's Junebug, there's the nomination for Junebug, then of course Enchanted. So Enchanted, Shadan, a fan. Disenchanted, how did you feel about it?
I love Enchanted so much that I refuse to watch Disenchanted because I don't want it to ruin it in my brain. She's phenomenal. I mean, Amy Adams is one of those actresses where I feel like she's gotten Oscar nominations for some roles that aren't her best, which we can get into later. And then she has these like phenomenal performances that have been ignored. And in my head, she was definitely Oscar nominated for Enchanted. She's so good in that, like charming, sweet, funny. She has a phenomenal voice.
No one could have played that part but her. Nobody. And I tried. I ran through actresses in my head. No one could have played that part the way that she did.
Completely agree. Yeah, she did like exudes Disney princess energy to me.
Yes.
And it's like sweet without being too much. Like it feels genuine. It doesn't even feel like a performance, which is a weird thing to say, but it just feels very real and like a very lived in role.
Yes, it seems like she's actually like does that. Like if I found out that Amy Adams actually had animated birds chirping around her and got her dressed every day, I would be like, of course they do. Because she's very Disney princess like. And she seems so sweet in real life too.
The Junebug nomination. Now that was 2000. It came out in 2005. So I guess like, the year after. That's Rachel Weisz winning for The Constant Gardener. Catherine Keener and Capote, Frances McDormand for North Country, and Michelle Williams for Brokeback Mountain were nominated. So she's immediately among the heavies, and obviously she couldn't really control, as films kind of come out, but it seems like she, is thrust in the mark here. And then everything kind of goes back and forth. We'll talk about more of the dramas and more of the awards next week, but there's like, in the middle of the heavies, there then pops up like Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day, and this moment like Night at the Museum. But then you have like Julie and Julia and Leap Year.
Maybe.
Which one, Amy?
Julia and Julie and Julia.
Okay. Tell me about it.
She, like I said, she just has this sweetness. And that one, she seemed very, I don't know, maybe the word is approachable. How she had this job and she lived in this crappy little apartment and she was wanting to do something important. And I related to that character. And again, when she would do her little like bon appetit and she would do her little impressions of Julia Childs, she was very, very sweet.
She's one of those people who you completely buy as a movie star. Like when you see her in an award show or like she has like a movie star presence, but then you also really buy her as like a normal person. Like I feel like she just disappears. I never feel like I'm watching like Amy Adams. Like I feel like I'm watching whatever character she's playing. And I was thinking about this because I mentioned this in our the Cate Blanchett podcast. Was that the last one we did? Was it
Julianne Moore?
Julianne Moore. Sorry, I just watched Tar, so I have Cate Blanchett. But I was thinking about this in relation to both Julianne Moore and Cate Blanchett. Like there are these actresses that I feel like have this like magnetism to them where I will watch them in anything. And even if it's like a movie that's like quote unquote like a weaker movie, they just have like a watchability. Because even something like Leap Year, which is like a pretty like I would say low tier romantic comedy, is such a fun breezy watch because she's just like a joy to watch. Or like Sunshine Cleaning, even like because I was looking through IMDb, there's a lot of movies that she sort of pops up in before she makes it big, but I still kind of remember her. Like I remember her in The Wedding Date. I remember her in Catch Me If You Can, The West Wing. Even these like very small performances, like she still makes an impact.
She was on The Office, a couple episodes of the first season of The Office.
It was, yeah.
And I'd forgotten that. And then you watch her and you're like, she still has that star quality though. Is that she can play, she is so beautiful, but she can also play kind of dorky, awkward.
But those early aughts then, was that just a matter of trying to be a job and actress, just popping up anywhere she could? Or was Hollywood just not sure what to do with her? Because I mean, as much as I'll be advocate, as much as you girls are praising, I mean, what roles does she fit? I mean, I guess a lot of these, when she would probably do auditions or something, people would say she's the cute, perky one. Well, of course, she's going to be in comedies.
Yeah. In Junebug, though, and I'm not going to spoil the end, there's a very powerful scene with her at the end, and she just breaks your heart into a billion pieces. And she really, and you forget that she has worked with the best of the best in Hollywood. And she totally holds her own. I mean, with her, and we'll talk about this in the other podcast, but in Doubt, her and Philip Seymour Hoffman and Meryl Streep in a room together. And you're like, these are some of the best performers ever.
Well,
and she holds it.
Catch Me If You Can, Steven Spielberg sanctioned, approved.
DiCaprio, yeah.
You're right, showing up still in all kinds of funny things, Will Ferrell with, Talladega Nights and all kinds of things like that. So it's Enchanted, you can kind of hone in is like the perfect match of here was the comedy, here was the charm, but here's the way to wink and nudge at that. Did you see Disenchanted, Amy?
No.
Uh,
I've been saving it.
but that's so funny.
I will die on the hill that even though I haven't seen it, she was amazing in it because she is very good in movies that are not good. Hello, dear Evan Hansen.
Now, I feel like our gentlefolk, now the rest of our gentlemen on the main InSession podcast, they're moving over to YouTube. So you can also see all their pretty faces. But now I feel like they were waiting, for the decade for a sequel to Enchanted. I feel like they really wanted it. And now you girls are like, no. Enchanted is too precious. I can't go for the sequel. I can't go for the sequel. That's too funny. And I guess she couldn't control when these things come out, obviously. But the way everything kind of went back and forth. And hello, shout out to Zeta Short. She's not here with us tonight. Also, a belated birthday to her, my fellow Aquarian. But we've debated back and forth often about are nominations about for an actor for that one film? Should it be for, the body of work in a given calendar? Because to me, going from the difference between, and we'll get into drama, Enchanted and Charlie Wilson's War, is a big difference in scale of movies. Miss Pettigrew and Doubt, big difference, So, Leap Year, you said, was Stinky, and then The Fighter, and then The Muppets popping up,
Which again, though, but she can do all of those movies and do them very well. And she can play a princess without being cloying. And that is not easy to do. She really pulled it off like she was a natural Disney princess without seeming like she was going over the and the character's over the top, but she didn't do it over the top. Like she almost like she played it straight. And I love that about her. I love that she's singing in the Muppets and she's twirling around and singing Me Party. There's nothing she can't do.
I think one of the reasons why her Junebug nomination in particular is so good is because it's like she wasn't a name and it's like a tiny movie. That doesn't really happen it happened this year, but it doesn't really happen that often where breakthroughs like that are recognized. So like that's kind of a great example of a case where they're strictly recognizing the performance. And speaking of birthdays, she's my birthday twin. That's one of the reasons why I really like her. We share a birthday, so I always feel connected to her. I'm like, even if I have nothing else in common with this wonderful person, we were born on the same day.
Wait, what date is this?
August 20th. She's
that's my niece's birthday too. That's a great birthday because my niece is fabulous too.
I was gonna say we weren't gonna age each other, but then you brought in your niece.
Yeah.
Yeah, I share a day with Charles Dickens, so I can't complain.
That's a great birthday twin.
That is a great birthday. I think me and Robert Zemeckis have the same birthday.
But
yeah, no one's claiming that one.
But when we started, I thought to myself, "Oh, I knew Shadan's love," but then Amy was like, "I need to tell you. You thought that I loved Kate Winslet. No, I love Amy Adams. Do you have a preference between the two? Could you choose?"
No. I would be very different with each of them. But Amy Adams, like I said, I just want to like stroke her hair and tell her how pretty she is. Like I love her.
Well, now
I want to take care of her.
An interesting question. They've not worked together. And it almost seems like, is that because they could kind of handle similar roles, dare I say?
I think they're just so phenomenal and they both have such range.
Because I know last week
they both did HBO miniseries and both won Emmy Awards for them.
Amy didn't
for Objects and Mayor of Easttown. I mean,
yeah, Amy didn't win, which we'll get into that in the drama.
She didn't? I swear I thought she did.
That was the Michelle Williams year for Fosse Verdon.
Oh,
yeah. That's but I have 4 actresses that I can think of off the top of my head where I will watch in absolutely anything. Like, put even the worst like Z-list, D whatever movie, B movie, but like Amy, both Kate Blanchett and Winslet and Julianne.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, and that's what I was saying earlier, like she just has that quality of like any movie that's boring or anything, she will just elevate. And
well, now, because I have to ask you, you mentioned it briefly last week when we were discussing Julianne Moore. We'll do Kate Blanchett after our Oscar specials we can do later in March. Dear Evan Hansen, though, is not good, and it's got both 2 out of your 3 in it.
It's painful, but Amy Adams was really good.
She was
as I mean, you see her as that suffering mother and that hope in her eyes. That's Amy Adams has this hopeful face that she does with these wide eyes, and she's, oh, you were friends with my son, and you see why he's like, I need to keep this woman happy because she's just lovely and hopeful and trying to hold this family together. And with the mess that movie was, had they done it more like the actual musical where she had some songs, it would have been a lot better.
I don't really agree. It's weird that I think Amy Adams, she has 2 comedy Golden Globes, and I wouldn't call any of them comedies, but Big Eyes and American Hustle. And Big Eyes to me is another movie that like there's a lot. It's not the best movie in the world, but she is so good in that movie.
And Christoph Waltz is in that movie. That's enough for me to see that movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's got both of them, and I can't believe I still haven't watched it. But that Big Eye art creeps me out.
I know, but and that's the thing is like that's not a movie that.
Yeah.
But she really elevates like that role. Role that easily. I mean, it is kind of a victim, like poor suffering wife movie. But she really elevates it just based on her performance, and like she just has a knack for drawing such empathy.
Tim Burton kind of fanciful.
It's a really good performance of hers too. Speaking of comedy performances,
I don't get American Hustle was listed as a comedy. That interests me. I personally, that is one of my favorite movies. I watched it twice over the weekend, and I made somebody watch it with me and didn't tell them that I'd already watched it the previous day because I love it so much. But I think it's really the first movie where I really see her as like sexy. Like she is seductive in that movie. And I love it. I love how she switches in and out of the accent. I think Christian Bale is hysterical in it. I think Bradley Cooper is amazing. And they all look like they're having the best time. I will stand by my love of that movie. That movie gets way too much hate. And I get that because David O. Russell is apparently like the worst person alive. But I felt when I saw that movie, I found it wildly entertaining. And I still do. That movie and Wolf of Wall Street, for me, were the top 2 movies of that year. And both of them should have swept all the Oscars.
But while we're waiting on Kristin to come back, I agree with you, Amy. I think American Hustle is kind of the first time she got to play somebody who was really glamorous. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But,
and she's very sexy in those plunging necklines, and she's strutting around.
In her filmography, she has a lot of early lighthearted comedies where she's popping up in lots of different things. And then she comes on with these big, heavy things, awards notice. You would think she's on as a big name, but then she's popping up in something, all the weird DC stuff, Lois Lane. So it's like, what does it say of an actress of here you are nominated for Best Actress in this, not satire, but, dark comedy American Hustle. But then it's like, oh, you can be Lois Lane in like a Batman movie or Superman movie.
I mean, I don't like, obviously, I don't know if I haven't read any interviews with her talking about her DC experience, and I don't want to speak for her. But to me, it seemed like maybe she was doing that for the paycheck of it all. And when I watched like Justice League and those movies, which I'm not a huge fan of, please don't come after me. But when I watched them, I literally said out loud to my friend, like, good for Amy for getting her paycheck. Like, it made me so happy to think of this like indie darling actress just being able to like cash her check.
Exactly. And it's why I forgive Kate Winslet for being in Titanic. Like, girl, you're better than that. But you know what? In Avatar, the sequel to Avatar. No, Kate Winslet. No,
I mean,
go back
the
and make Peter
worst-
Jackson movies again.
The worst
But I
case of
also
that is
respect her.
Michelle
And
Williams in Venom. Like whenever she pops up in that, I'm just like, Michelle, no. Like, good for
like,
you.
what are you thinking? No, like, no. But she's an actress, and I think that's what it is. And I think she plays different roles, and the fact that she can do it all. And like I said, in the romantic comedy roles that she was in were such quirky roles, though. Like, she wasn't just, I mean, Enchanted is a very different movie than like most of the Kate Hudson romantic comedies. Like, it's such a quirky role. I can't imagine anyone else doing Enchanted the way that she could. And the Muppets, you know what I mean? Like, even her romantic comedies were very unique films.
You kept saying, we're going to talk about the Muppets, right? We're going to talk about the Muppets, right?
She was so good. Am I wrong? She was great in the Muppets.
But you guys are talking about her choosing this quirky or being able to do anything with whatever role is given to her, big, small, comedy or drama. Now, and, you know, again, maybe we don't know her personal thing, but I don't know that it's necessarily choice. I still think there might have been a phase there where was she taking everything that was offered to her, you know, making hay while the sun is shining, because actresses have such a short window. Do you know what I mean? Mm. Yeah. But then, I mean, at this time, I mean, after The Fighter, Man of Steel, I guess, was supposed to be such a big, huge thing. And regardless of what you think of it, then she still pops around in American Hustle. So again, I guess it's consistent work anyway. If you pop up in some little things and if they do bad, it doesn't matter because here's something big and awards.
And David
big.
O. Russell got her 2 Oscar nominations.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because you also said, you know, where's the line in Vice also?
3 Oscar nominations. No, McKay did that one, right?
Yeah, that's Adam McKay. What is that thing that they say in Hollywood? One for them and one for me. She's like the perfect example. Like, she does like the indie things that, you know, light a fire, and then she does like the one for them audience movie. But that's why speaking of like rom-coms, that's why I bring up Leap Year, because it's such a like run-of-the-mill rom-com, but even that she's able to like elevate and do really well in. And if there's one movie that's like underseen in her comedies, again, I have to bring up Sunshine Cleaning. She's really good. Emily Blunt, they play sisters.
Stop it. That sounds like the perfect movie.
I know. And
Emily Blunt, who I also love. We could do an episode on her.
We could. They have such great chemistry in that movie, so highly recommend that.
I literally want to watch that now. That was on Netflix. I remember seeing it as I scrolled through.
Well, again, 2008, Sunshine Cleaning, Miss Pettigrew Lives Her Day, and Doubt. So maybe at that point, maybe she was able to have a choice of schedule her calendar and get several things done, that things would come out in a row. Because Leap Year also comes out the same year as The Fighter. So she works steady. And again, we said this with Julianne Moore. I guess actresses have to keep going. They have to keep working. They can't choose to stop. I feel like you notice, like if we're talking about American Hustle, someone like Jennifer Lawrence, when she's got to make an announcement to leave, that she's getting married and having a baby and taking a break, which is like people say like the death knell for the actresses once they kind of withdraw. So she's continuing to work steady, popped up in all the goofy different DC movies. I want to say Marvel movies, but they're not. But is she also, like the way we just said with Julianne Moore, here they are together in a couple. Maybe was it the pandemic that they had issues in finding the right roles?
I don't know. I mean, there's a couple things. I think every actress, unfortunately, inevitably, like when they become overexposed, they start to face backlash. I feel like that's why somebody like Jennifer Lawrence or Anne Hathaway, like they kind of feel like they need to go away because people start to turn on them. And I think Amy Adams, like, she's very beloved, but I feel like now people are kind of like, okay, she needs a new agent. Like, I don't want to say struggling, but I feel like her last couple of projects haven't
Not
really
been good
hit. Yeah. And
it's sad because it's stuff that had real potential that Hillbilly Elegy, which again, I thought she was great and I thought Glenn Close was great, but it was just a lousy movie.
I think the projects that she's picking are projects that like sound great on paper, like an adaptation of a very beloved musical, an adaptation of two very beloved books, also with The Woman in the Window, but like they're just not translating. And I think, to Kristin, to go back to what you said, like I think it is a question of like maybe people aren't really sure what to do with her. And there's like a lot of actresses, and unfortunately, again, in her kind of age group that have to kind of compete with one another for roles. It's like, where does she fit in? I don't know what the disconnect is, but
yet I feel with Jennifer Lawrence, the issue with Jennifer Lawrence, in my humble opinion, is she's been super miscast in some of her big parts, including the one that she got the Oscar for, because she was just way light years too young to play the characters that she was playing. I cannot buy her in Silver Linings Playbook as a woman who has been widowed.
Yeah. Well,
it's like, did she get married at 12? Because she's and she looks young. And I'm supposed to buy her as like, she got married, had a long enough marriage that she's now widowed, and had had all these experiences after the guy died. It's like, did she get married at 16 and then widowed at 18? Like, no. And in American Hustle, she does not look like a been around the block mother of like a 9-year-old kid.
Yeah, I was gonna say American Hustle is the worst example of that, where she's so miscast. Like, it just, that doesn't. Yeah, no, I don't even know how to. It's just
like, was she, again, she would have had to have been a child's bride in both. There's supposed to be these world weary, been around, I've had all these experiences. It's like, did you start having sex when you were 11? I don't buy it.
But is that just?
And she's a good actress. That's the problem. She's a good actress, but
that's the mentality. You have these almost like the early comedy roles, those little television appearances, like they were teen girl or juvenile. So these actresses are striving to be in the more grow up roles. I mean, I feel like Elizabeth Taylor going from National Velvet to A Place in the Sun. We've discussed, but
at least in that she was only 19 years old. Yeah, but she wasn't playing a mother of like a 10-year-old who was like,
because I feel like a lot of people, like, once they do the big action role and then when they try to pivot back to indies, it doesn't really work, which Causeway is fantastic. Go watch Causeway. Yay for Tyree Henry getting that Oscar nomination. But with somebody like Amy Adams, she kind of can transition from indie to blockbuster a lot better than a lot of her contemporaries can, I think.
Yeah. And again, because she's perfect for the roles. And she can do anything. She can.
Well, is it just that she became a name, so to speak, so fast that now her name has a little bit of clout when it comes to a movie? Oh, Amy Adams is making an appearance in our film.
I don't know, for some reason. I still, as famous as she is, I don't know. I don't know if she's that much of a name yet for some reason. In my head, she still seems like this young up and comer.
But that's a good point. I mean, maybe if we saw another actress in a role like Hillbilly Elegy, like, we wouldn't be as hard on them, but because it's Amy and she's so beloved, we feel like, oh, like, what is she, like, she deserves better than this. Like, maybe if it was somebody else, we wouldn't care as much. I don't know.
But sadly, is that looks, not talent? Because she still looks young and youthful. And Hillbilly Elegy, we'll get into dramas because it's the way her appearance gets changed for the role. That famous, Oscar, like, oh, the make under. That means it's a serious role. The woman's going without makeup. Ooh.
But she's done that in a lot of her movies, though. I mean, in Doubt, she's wearing that bonnet and you just see her beautiful face. But in like Julie, I always forget which name comes first in that movie. So she's just got like a short choppy hair and she looks ordinary. The only movie that I can think of where she's really made up is like The Muppets or like American Hustle,
yeah.
because so often they can make her look like a regular person, not extremely like hideous, but just like a regular girl next door. And she just wears, like I said, in the Julia Childs movie, she just seems like a normal person. And then in American Hustle, and she's wearing like the plunging necklines, and she looks amazing.
Because there are definitely more comedies early in her career. So I think she is still bouncing around trying to find, I don't know, the role to prove herself, which seems weird when someone has Oscar nominations. Why isn't she nominated for more comedies? Are there any other comedies for which you would nominate her?
She did get nominated for Vice, right? And it's hard because some of the movies she does are
Junebug, Vice, and they're supporting actress. Yeah, Junebug and Vice for supporting actress nominations. American Hustle is the best actress nomination.
Well,
that's it.
I think there's just like genre bias with comedies in terms of the Academy. I mean, Vice personally is probably like her one Oscar nomination that I would take away. I mean, she's very good, but like not my favorite.
But again, and that's hard to say because Lynn Chaney's not a personal favorite of mine. And they got these actors that I love to play these people. But she was good. And that scene where, and I've only seen this movie once, and it was in the theater, where like they're in bed together and she's giving this almost Shakespearean monologue.
That's the scene. That's exactly the scene that stands out to me as well. And maybe there's another one where
I just remember thinking like
pushing him.
Yeah. Like bravo when she did that, because it was Shakespearean. And I thought, wow.
And she doesn't have a ton of screen time in that movie. Am I wrong? She's not in very much of it, but she's not a big impression with very limited screen time.
But she didn't. But she, again, I feel like she plays comedy straight, that she, again, could have made it a caricature, but it's like, you didn't just see her as like, oh, this woman that was married to Dick Cheney, this horrible person. You saw her as the beginning when he comes in and he's drunk and she's like, get it together. And you feel for her.
Mm-hmm. So
that she was able to do that.
Best Supporting Actress nomination, which is funny because you say, yeah, Lynn Chaney playing a person is usually, the big, special, important things. That's the year Regina King wins. You also have Maria,
take it away from my girl, Regina.
And then, but you have Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz probably canceling each other out for the favorite. And I think I may have debated this with Zita also. How much of that then becomes, are you in the right category or not as well?
She definitely was, but I'm not saying Regina King. God, she was good. She totally earned that.
Yeah, that's one of my.
She looked fierce at the Oscars.
Oh my gosh, that's one of my favorite Oscar wins in recent memory for sure. I feel like also Amy Adams has become one of those people where like she kind of sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes she's like a name check, and I feel like Vice is also one of those examples where it's like kind of a nomination of almost like a career nomination, but just like we really like you, we respect you, so we're gonna nominate you, even if this isn't like your best performance.
Okay, because the Best Actress nomination for American Hustle, that's Kate Blanchett winning for Blue Jasmine, Sandra Bullock in Gravity, Judi Dench for Philomena, and Meryl Streep, of course, August Osage County. So if you're talking about people who are just being nominated for the respect or more for the obligation, that I guess
that was a tough year.
Yeah.
If Amy had lost to anyone else, I would still be making letter writing campaigns on her behalf. Kate Blanchett was in that film. That one was tough. That one I was like, I can get it. Like Gene Hackman winning for Unforgiven. Like when I think Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men, and it burns me up that he didn't win for A Few Good Men. And then it's like, but who did he lose to? Oh, Gene Hackman for Unforgiven. Okay.
It's funny because when we said, at InSessionFilm.com, they're doing all their regular festival stuff and chasing the gold and awards material and all. We said, well, okay, we'll be a little adjacent to that. We'll wait till after to talk about all the hot mess discussions. And I said, well, okay, ironically, Amy Adams seems very fitting to discuss during awards season, even if she's not having anything currently out and about right now, because there's just been these, why nominate her so many times if you're not going to give her the awards?
I can't believe she's only had 3 nominations. Seriously?
But it seems like more.
It does, because I would have sworn she was nominated for the Master. She has worked with everyone.
She
with
is
everyone, and like more than once.
Yeah,
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
6 nominations.
Which I would argue, and I'm curious what you guys think about this. I haven't seen Junebug, but based on the rest of that category, I think that's probably the nomination where you could argue she was the best in her category.
I think a lot of people feel that way, that should have been one that she won for. And really, it's such a small movie. She walks away with that movie. You would think she was the main character. She's not. The main character is actually boring, and who really cares? She is the light of that movie, and she really, really stands out.
It's her first nomination. And it's the only one that's truly for comedy, because we're saying where's the gray area between, dark black comedy satires. So it's the only pure comedy, and it's supporting actress nomination. So,
but when you look at her other nominations, like you could see why the person who won that year.
Rachel Weisz in The Constant Gardener.
Yeah,
that's the standout.
And I love Rachel Weisz, but like I would not have given her an Oscar for that role.
Again, it's Academy back and forth. It's more like, we nominated Amy Adams early for Junebug because it was good, and it was like, be grateful that you got like a nomination so early, so young, and now you got to work for the rest of them, kind of thing. The same thing with like Jennifer Lawrence or Winter's Bone type stuff. Like, you have to earn it or work for it. The way they kind of.
Spoiler alert for our drama episode, but then you have something like Arrival, which seems like it would be like the perfect Oscar moment for her, because it's like it gets a ton of nominations. She's working with a very respected director, which I want her to work with Villeneuve again, and then she's not even nominated.
And she was nominated for all the other awards,
everything. Yeah, which I was, and looking at her career, by the way, the Brits love her because she's gotten so many BAFTA nominations. But so I don't know for the Oscars, like what, speaking of like we did Julianne Moore, is it just going to be like a thing of like she just needs to do like a really, really Beatty role, even though she has done a lot? I don't know if it's just like kind of a weaker year where she can kind of sneak through. I don't know what has to work, because she's had a lot of moments where just somebody sneaks through or ekes it out. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, is that also genre bias compounded by her undefinable, like we're saying, movies that are romantic comedies but they're different, or this was something funny, she just makes an appearance, this is something that was satire. So does the Academy only love, no, I am a dramatic actress, Meryl, I only do dramas, where BAFTA I guess does nominate her for Big Eyes and Arrival. They don't seem to have a problem with someone doing something different every couple of years, that she's much more steadily nominated. I don't know.
The BAFTAs are ever since I found out that Maggie Smith won Best Actress for A Room with a View, I've been like, the BAFTAs are bullshit. I'm sorry. I'm like, no, that is wrong. Therefore, I can never take them seriously.
But Shadan mentioned Golden Globes as well. She's been nominated for much more. And she did win for American Hustle and for Big Eyes, Best Actress, Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy. So
Golden Globes need to figure that out. The Martian as comedy? They didn't put Elvis in musical? What?
Golden Globes, we know, are a hot mess. We know how I feel about awards season. I mean, to me, I don't think that every time your favorite wins or is nominated, you're like, oh my God, yes, you want to take the vindication. But when they're not nominated, when they keep losing, no, that stuff doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
I might,
mean, we
spoiler
can
alert,
jump
I
on
might
the
be feeling that year about my new my future husband Barry Keoghan for Banshee's Finisher in this year.
I thought of you when he got nominated. I was like, Amy's gonna be so excited.
He's on the short list to be my next husband. I'm madly in love with him. Barry, give me a call.
I mean, that's how I felt about the Brian Tyree Henry. That was my favorite nomination of this year. But
See, we mentioned men, and then
no, I was gonna say, like, you can dump on the Globes, but that's like the only major nomination she has. I think the two wins are the major wins that she's had so far in terms of trophies.
Well, I like that I do like the Golden Globes because they do sometimes, I don't understand what categories they're putting things in, but they do recognize comedy and musicals as being of value. And that's how a lot of really great performances get to win, is because a lot of them wouldn't even be nominated for an Oscar, which is sad.
And we do have Razzies, of course, for The Woman in the Window and Dear Evan Hansen, nominations for worst actress, worst supporting actress.
She did what she could do with that. It just I can't even, that actor is just
that's not deserved. I think they gave her those nominations so that they could put her name in the headline and get attention. Like, are they the best performances she's given? No, but worst, no. Too hard.
And it's funny, I still think of Sharp Objects as something relatively recent, but it's not now, 2018. So again, part of me wonders, the way the pandemic just, threw up everything, tossed up everything. So are, women vying for a lot of the same roles that we've got, great women showing up in this together, the same bad movies? Yeah. Is she going to be back in the new DC stuff? More Lois Lane? Who knows? Who cares?
No. Amy, no. Put her in another Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
No, here's funny, because I'm browsing as I discuss here. Night Bitch is something that's forthcoming based on a book, apparently.
I am so excited for Night. It's definitely going to be a drama, I think, but the book is one of my favorites. That's going to be a very weird, if it's anything like the book, it's going to be weird. But I think she is just going to like destroy that role because it's so meaty, pun intended. There's just so much for her to like grab onto. I'm so excited to see what she does with that.
And now that's a film. And then apparently there's some kind of Kings of America, like Walmart miniseries or something is happening. But it surprises me. Yeah, it surprises me actually going and looking that she doesn't really have a lot of things upcoming after working so steady, working so hard. I mean, I guess, girl deserves a break. But again, like we said, out of sight, out of mind in this industry, unfortunately.
But then she could come back and just be in something.
Sure. There's the comeback reconnaissance.
Mickey Rourke coming back. I mean, it happens.
Mike from Neighbors.
Yeah.
Sorry, couldn't resist. Did you have favorite comedies, Amy?
Enchanted, and I'm putting the Muppets because the movie's hilarious. And if we're counting American Hustle as a comedy, yes, American Hustle. I just love that movie so much. I love it. It's perfect and hilarious. And she looks really good. And I just think she's amazing.
Yes. Erica E-Rock Reviews and Amy Smith Films with Amy should be with us next week when we talk about the dramas. We can have their counterpoint too, where American Hustle falls. Do you prefer her comedies to her dramas, or do you interchangeably see them?
I like the satire-y things that she does, the ones that are kind of both, because I think The Fighter is very, very funny. And her scenes are very, very funny. When she has to beat up all those girls, she really seems like a little Massachusetts girl there. And she can handle it. She does those. But yeah, but my favorite movie of hers, is American Hustle.
Shadan, did you have a preference?
I think I like seeing her do more lighthearted things, maybe because I love her and I don't want to see her get tortured. But I mean, she's like a very good dramatic actress, but like her lighter things are more fun to watch. And I think it allows for more of her charisma to come through. Cause like, I think her American Hustle performance, like that performance, in my opinion, survives on her like magnetism and just like that star quality that she has. If I had to pick, like in terms of fit, I mean, I think you could make an argument that Enchanted is like her best performance in anything. Maybe, possibly.
Agreed. No, I will definitely. It's one of her most iconic. Definitely.
Yeah. So I would say if I had to pick a favorite, it would be that one. But I mean, you can't really go wrong with any of them in terms of if someone's like looking for something to watch. She's one of those people to me where you could put on any movie of hers and you would just be charmed by her. So you can't really go wrong.
Agreed.
Okay. From the two Amy Adams enthusiasts who have not seen Disenchanted, okay, that was strange. I feel like it's just, like I said, I feel like people were waiting for it and it didn't happen. And then it comes on in the pandemic and gets dumped on Disney Plus. I feel like maybe it just came around at the wrong time. I don't know. But like you said, I feel like the overall impression, I want to say the word quirky. Like we keep saying what's lighthearted, what's a comedy, but some of these dramas and satires, like, and that idea of, oh, she's just a quirky actress and now she's doing something serious. And look, she's just as good at being serious. Let's give her these nominations. And it's just, things just aren't at the right times always. Because again, she has a small part in Drop Dead Gorgeous only. But if we're talking about kind of satire, like I said, I don't think people got it at the time, which actually ironically is very fitting. You know, Denise Richards doing her dance routine with a Jesus on a cross.
I had forgotten Amy Adams was even in that movie because I think of Denise Richards and Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah, it's like it was such like a demented, like, what is going on in this movie? Like this is weird. But you look at it now and you think, like today, if somebody was doing a beauty pageant out in the sticks somewhere and decided they were going to do something with some Jesus doll, there would be a certain contingent in America who would absolutely adore that.
There definitely would. Speaking of quirky actresses, Kirsten Dunst is very similar to Amy Adams. Mm-hmm. They can do these parts that almost nobody else can do because she can do drama and she can do really dark satire. She did a show that was called like How to Become a Millionaire in Orlando, and it basically was a whole thing basically kind of based on Amway, and she's like super into this whole like pyramid scheme and everything, and it's very dark but very, very funny and very biting, and that she can play these quirky kinds of roles even though she is a very typical blonde hair, skinny, beautiful girl.
Shadan, is there just people who love her quirky, or are there people who actually hate Amy Adams as quirky?
Does anyone hate Amy Adams as anything? Like, are there people who are like anti-Amy? No, I really, because she seems like one of those actresses that's like,
well, apparently the Academy, apparently.
I was like, where are these horrible people?
You know me, I love mess.
I don't think she really has any haters. I don't think she's like an Anne Hathaway who definitely has haters.
That should be our like tagline for the podcast, is just Kristin saying, I love mess. I love mess. That should play at the beginning of every
episode. We should have a sound bite of that at the top of every episode.
Yes.
Do you hear that, our illustrious leader, JD? That's what you can add to our discussion, our little opening, nice little bells and whistles. We love mess. There you go. But, you know, I guess everybody has their actress favorites, and you just brought up Kirsten Dunst. How much of it is competition? You know, it would be interesting to see. Sometimes when you look at these roles, you can see who's cast, who drops out, who's auditioned, who almost got a role. But a lot of that must have been, you know, not tooth and nail, but early on, it must have been tough, certainly, to get a foot in the door. And how many of these ladies are competing for roles now? Because there's just not that many quality roles for women of a certain age, much less of skill varies. So
it seems like there's a lot almost for the older actresses, I think. And I think that that's wonderful. Because Cate Blanchett, love her. She's not 20, though. You know what I mean? And Michelle Yeoh and these phenomenally talented women who are getting these really interesting roles. I think Julia
Women have
Roberts
to go
is doing
away.
some
So
of her best work now.
We said this with Mayor of Easttown before, where we were talking about Kate Winslet, like the fact that, the man is just there to just be the boyfriend. And that's it. It's like, well, that's the nature of every woman's role ever. The fact that we're talking about someone like Amy Adams, who, guess what? She's Lois Lane in a bunch of movies. Yeah, she's Superman's chick. Well, that's it. This idea that you're right. Like, there's women of a certain age and she still looks young. So maybe she's gotten away with some things, but at some point she will have to age into those kinds of roles. And it's a crowded arena. And so that's what I mean. It surprises me that there's really not that much on the horizon for her, which could be of her choice. But how much of that, is industry. And the way the industry is falling apart right now. I feel like the streaming bubble has already burst. I started blogging a few things about streaming stuff, because it's like, it used to be, oh my God, great. Look, everybody and their grandmother is showing up having a TV show. And now it's like, one streamer is falling apart, another one's merging, another's consolidating. We filmed entire things. Here's an entire TV show. Here's entire movies. But you know what? We're just going to take the tax write-off instead. So it's another gamble. If you put yourself into a role, it takes a lot to film a movie. They take time out when you're filming 2, 3, 4 projects a year, and then to have your work not be seen either. So I don't know.
Yeah, and if it can happen, and you look at, and it's happening to some of the greatest artists. When Martin Scorsese has trouble getting funding for a movie, it's bad.
Again, it's so funny. You stop and think. Vice and Sharp Objects were the same year, and that was 5 years ago now, more than 5 years ago. So, and you think, wow, 5 years is a lot to kind of clunk around in a few clunkers. So, are you looking forward to the next thing? Amy, come back. Amy wants
call me
with Amy and Kate Winslet and who else?
Oh, geez, Peter O'Toole. I've got a few people. And Barry Keoghan. Barry, call me.
Oh, yeah. We got to add men into it now? No. Okay.
No, but really my two real passions and loves are Kate Winslet and Amy Adams. Yeah. They're just on a whole different planet.
And you haven't written anything for InSession Film with Amy Adams.
I have not, but because I realize it would be very gushing, but I should. I just submitted my review of Women Talking. But we'll save that for another day. Maybe it would have been more successful if Amy Adams had been in it. I don't know.
Would you, if you were doing a top 10, would you include these comedies on here, or is it the top drama?
No. Mm-mm. Because the fact that, like I said, I think anyone who can do really good stuff with the Muppets, people don't take it seriously, but you know what? Michael Caine in A Muppet Christmas Carol, I will die on the hill that's one of his best roles.
True.
She does that. American Hustle, Doubt.
Well, Amy, I'll raise a question for you. Are there any performances of what we've seen? Are there any performances where you feel like she's like phoning it in? Because I would say no. I would say even something like Justice League, or what is the movie where he, like, spoiler alert, he dies and she has like this really emotional moment. And I was like, I really felt that. I was like, look at Amy, like, making me feel things at a superhero movie. Like, good for you.
I can honestly say I have not seen any of those. That's my personal biases. I haven't seen any of those.
Well, she's good in the material that she's given. I would say she's very good in the material that she's given, which, how many people can you say that about?
Dear Evan Hansen was so awful, so horrendously bad, but she really moved me. She was very, very moving, and she seemed just like a mom. It wasn't a de-glamorous role, but it definitely wasn't glamorous.
And I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be the one who loves mess. And I said, if you were doing a hypothetical top 10, Amy Adams, and Amy says to us, well, the Muppets and Dear Evan Hansen.
No, Dear Evan Hansen would not be one of my top.
Okay. I'm sorry. I thought I like to be the contrarian. Well, let me justify this performance. Sorry, Shadan.
I'm going to watch the Muppets after we get off this podcast.
Her name is Mary, and she wears these pretty clothes, and she's such a love. And
well,
then get back to me on that, because seriously, I want to hear your thoughts.
I raised this question about Julianne Moore last week, but like, I don't think Julianne Moore has ever given a bad performance. And I would say the same thing about Amy Adams. I don't think she's ever given a bad performance. She's given performances that are not as good as others, but there's not a single one that I would say is quote unquote bad. I don't think she's capable of it.
My blood is still boiling that Julianne Moore did not win Best Supporting Actress for Boogie Nights. And my blood is equally boiling that she and Burt Reynolds should have owned those awards and swept that entire year.
The more and more I look back at that year, I just have so many questions. I really do. Because,
like, how come LA Confidential didn't win everything?
Yes,
I know you.
I mean,
I see you.
Because I sit back and think of the way people are billed. I just saw a couple of Twitter threads of people talking about the category fraud and how, you know, it's not necessarily the amount of time for a role, but when someone's supporting and they steal the show, or they're just given it because they're the top woman, not necessarily that they're actually the lead actress in a story. So it's like so much of this, I wonder how much is it name recognition? How much is it where somebody is if you're top billed, you can't be nominated for supporting? You know, I just feel like it's just such a mess. And I feel like 97 is just the year for that. And it's funny, Amy, because you do the how are they not nominated?
Uh-huh.
We'll get into this a lot more next week when we really hone in on the dramas for Amy Adams. But outside of the obvious, are there any that you're surprised? How is she not nominated?
Not really. She was nominated for the ones I really think she should have gotten it for, except Enchanted.
I'm sure there'll be a debate though when we get to Arrival.
But yeah, even though it's hard because I love her, but Arrival is not my kind of movie.
True.
It's really not genre. So I don't get into it as much as I did like Doubt or American Hustle, which is just, I just love that movie.
Mm-hmm. Now, Shadan, you also work over at Awards Daily, correct?
Indeed, yes.
What is the consensus there on Amy Adams?
In terms of Amy, I think as I said before, I think everyone loves Amy. I think everyone agrees that her trophy shelf should be more full than what it is. And as I was saying before, it just seems like a lot of her like lack of wins are just a timing thing, because again, and this is a drama, but when you look at Sharp Objects, like you look at that performance and you're like, there's no way she doesn't win the Emmy for that. But then that year is so stacked that it's like, okay. And then you have the same thing with her like Oscar nominations too, where again, it seems like Junebug is really the only time where you could say she's like the best in her category. And there's always somebody else that seems like a more clear, obvious choice that year. So like sometimes I think like, okay, well, if such and such project had come out the next year, like she might have been able to win for that. So a lot of her career, or again, maybe with the way that these movies are shot and released, for a lot of things are crammed into the 1 year. So I don't know, but I hope she gets a better streak of luck, agent, publicist. I don't know what is happening. And maybe it's a good thing that she's being selective. Maybe if we get like one really good Amy Adams project every 3 years, I would prefer that than like 3 subpar things in 1 year.
But in some ways, to me, she's the embodiment of the industry, or the quote critics compared to the public, because like Critics' Choice, look in here, there's like a Nickelodeon like fan nomination or something. All the Critics Associations or MTV Awards or something is where she's nominated, loved, and beloved. So the
people
disconnect
love her.
Yeah. People love her, but I don't know, why doesn't the industry think she's put in her dues? Do you think it's simply that the I don't know, the biggies just perceive her as a comedy actress?
I don't know. It is hard to say. I agree with that there was always somebody a little bit who stood out a little bit more that year. And like I said, I love American Hustle. However, her losing to Cate Blanchett for Blue Jasmine, I can't really argue with that. can't.
I mean,
Kate
I would
Blanchett
say,
really deserved an Oscar
yeah,
for that film.
definitely. I would say the industry, I mean, there aren't very many contemporaries of hers that have 6 Oscar nominations. Like, so I would say it's not even that the industry like doesn't respect her enough or sees her as a comedy person. It's just like, I think, again, within her age group, there's so many, a lot of people are competing for those awards and those same roles. So it's like, but I definitely think she has cut out her niche or her sort of spot, I think.
And a lot of those actresses also have several nominations, Michelle Williams, and not one. And
Right.
she's given some really good performances.
And you look at somebody like Kate Winslet, I mean, it took her several nominations to win. And then you look at somebody like Glenn Close, who I would argue is
Yes,
the GOAT, alongside Meryl Streep, even surpassing Meryl for me personally, and she hasn't won at all. So I don't think
Kirsten Dunst was only nominated one time. What? So it's hard to say because they're not racking up all these awards, but they are phenomenally talented actresses.
Race, I'm sure is going to be interesting. I mean, even I can't escape the hot mess that's going on there, right? It's ironic though, because you bring up her contemporaries. In some ways, hot take, her career is almost a little bit like Meryl Streep, I feel, because Meryl Streep even had that era where she came on very serious, but then she bounced around in things like Postcards from the Edge and Death Becomes Her, which we now adore, but at the time were a little mixed or not quite understood, or people saying, Meryl, what are you doing? And somebody who's willing to do, Mamma Mia, getting up and singing and doing the splits. So,
but by that point, she had already had Oscars under her belt. Really? And she started off, I mean, she was in Manhattan, where she had a small part, but she was, the Deer Hunter, Kramer versus Kramer, and Sophie's Choice were only within maybe 5 years of each other. And then, she did Out of Africa and stuff. And then it was like, oh, she can also do comedy. And we all loved her more because of that, rather than doing the quirky roles.
Right. Quirky, we come back to.
And then eventually they do a serious role.
This is also, you're talking about a different era too, where there were just certainly a lot of things being made. So it's almost like, though, I still feel like Amy Adams has to work for it. I don't think she can sit back on the not really having any laurels yet, even as we say she's so acclaimed. Shadan?
I think that'll be why it's so interesting to me to see what happens with Night Bitch, because like I think that could be a role where she comes back into like the awards conversation and could be like a big meaty thing for her. So it'd be interesting to see how that's received, or like what happens the next time she takes on like an awards bait role. Because I think like the problem with Hillbilly Elegy and like Dear Evan Hansen is that they just weren't well received enough. But even again, something like Vice, because she is Amy Adams, she was able to get into the supporting actress that year. So like it'll be interesting I think she does have enough goodwill where she's able to have a few sort of misses and still come back pretty strong. I have faith that that's going to happen.
Well, she has a varied enough career that you could, search Amy Adams on your streaming platforms and always find something. So I guess in some ways that longevity, though, is there. It's just tough to watch in real time in the 21st century.
And I remember feeling for a while that Kate Winslet was real hot and in everything. And then it seems like for a while, everything sort of cooled off. And she did that like Labor Day movie. And I don't know if anyone even saw it. And I was starting to think like, Kate, like my Amy Adams is kind of taking your place in my heart. And you need to kind of do something to get back. And she did Mayor of Easttown and she freaking rocked. And
I went to see that Idris Elba, The Mountain Between Us movie in theaters because of my love of Kate Blanchett. And Kate Winslet. And I was just like, So, maybe what's missing for Amy is another Sharp Objects, like intense miniseries like that.
Well, I guess we have to wait and see.
Amy, if you're out there and listening, let us know.
I was gonna say we're giving her so much good advice in this podcast.
I hope she reaches out.
Oh, that's a shame. But see, maybe that's part of it. I don't think she's on social media, or she's not into pap strolls and controversy. That stupid stuff. Like, again, I don't even follow this stuff, but it was like I saw like the Zachary Levi saying, stupid anti-vax stuff on Twitter, and I think to myself, oh, does he have a movie coming out? And then like the next tweet as I'm scrolling is like somebody being like, the trailer for like Shazam is here, and I'm thinking, oh, controversy is the new marketing campaign. So I don't think she doesn't play that game. She seems to be a very quiet person, and that's probably in some ways to her detriment.
But she's classy, my girl. That's why we love her. My girlfriend.
It's tough when you follow favorites, though, waiting for what they're going to do.
It is, but like I said, Kate Winslet kind of went away for a while. And she was in like every movie when I was in college. Quills, Eternal Sunshine. It's when I first saw Heavenly Creatures, all the movies. And then she wasn't for a while after The Reader. And then she came back.
But Shadan said, but now she's waiting for what Amy Adams is going to do next.
Yeah.
So she has that. People are still able to find her work. And
very readily available. Yeah.
She's worth waiting for her next show.
She is.
So did you say what your favorite comedy was, Amy? You said, well, American Hustle.
Yeah.
Asterisk American Hustle.
Yes.
Shadan, did you say what your favorite Amy Adams comedy was?
I'll say Enchanted with extra love for sunshine cleaning. Those are my top.
I'm gonna have to see that. Her and Emily Blunt. There's another one who's getting ignored though.
Mm-hmm.
Very talented, very doing lots of interesting things and getting completely ignored.
Another topic I have to add to the list.
Yeah. Amy, do you think these recent projects she's doing, it's because she like wants to do them, or do you think she's looking for awards bait?
Because I think she does projects based on what she wants to do.
Interesting. Because I feel like with Emily, there'd seem like a period where she was doing like kind of things that she was hoping would be awards bait and it didn't pan out. So
the fact that she was not nominated for stealing the movie The Devil Wears Prada from both Meryl Streep and Anne Hathaway is like a hate crime, and The Hague needs to investigate it. That's all I'm saying.
That's all I'm saying. You wrote about that at InSession Film.
That goes back to like the genre bias with the Academy, because I would argue that The Devil Wears Prada is like one of Meryl Streep's like best. Like that should have been her third Oscar win. So,
well, however, is she really the lead in that movie?
Yeah, exactly. She was nominated for the lead. Yeah.
And her character, if we think about it, really doesn't have much of a character arc. She's just Miranda the whole way through. And do not get me wrong, it's one of my favorite Meryl Streep performances. I love it. I love it. I love it. But when I saw that movie, all I thought about when I left, and we're talking Meryl Streep at her best, was freaking Emily Charleston, and she's amazing.
But Devil's Advocate, a movie that has, more than one woman. Oh my God, has 3 or 4 strong women. Gee, what are we supposed to do with it all? We don't know. We can't understand this movie. We
Stanley Tucci should have gotten
more with the hours. Where did the cards fall of, well, who's lead, who's support, or the favorites? Should they all have been lead? Who knows?
Hey, and Mutiny and the Bounty, 3 were nominated for Best Lead Actor, but this was like in the 30s and it was men.
Mm-hmm. Well, they didn't have supporting.
Did they that year?
Back then. I don't know.
And yes, this is why I get paid the big bucks, because I know this stuff off the top of my head. There were 3 dudes and they were all nominated.
Are you working on anything fancy now, Amy?
Well, now I'm going to have to write a love story to Amy Adams, and I might title it that. And it might not be just roles I like of her. It might just be like an open letter in the New York Times to Amy, I love you. And then I might write one about I want to write one about Barry Keoghan now.
Your full page ad. That's just
A Thomason 11 on Twitter.
A Thomason 11 is where we're gonna look for that. Just start doing a chain, a gift
And
chain.
if you go back on InSession, I just published last week my review of Women Talking.
Okay. Shadan, what are you doing recently? You're just at Shadan Larki.
Yes.
You did festival you were hoping to go, South by Southwest? That's not.
Yeah, I'm still kind of figuring out how the logistics, but right now I'm just doing like Oscar stuff. So I need to wade into like movie review world. That's kind of one of my big goals for the year. So we'll see how that goes.
Did I say myself? I'm Kristin Battestella. I'm at Therefore Review on Twitter. I always forget to mention myself, and then we just start talking in it. And then I think now that the boys are doing their show on YouTube as well, the main InSession, I still said, when I say that we're the new women's podcast for InSession Film, I think, are we still new? We started last year, and then they're on, their 500th opus. InSessionFilm.com has been here for 10 year now, anniversary happening. They're on YouTube now, and I think, did people don't know our names? Our voices with our faces, with our names, with what we're writing. You can read what we have written at InSessionFilm.com, and they're having all their big fancy stuff on YouTube now. There's Patreon also that you could follow at InSessionFilm on Twitter too. So next week, we're going to have even more ladies here, and we're going to get into the serious nitty gritty with Amy Adams. Girls, this is the first time you two have been together on the podcast, too.
Yes. It's been a joy getting to know you.
We did Disney together.
Oh, that's
did?
great.
Oh, okay. See, I don't even remember that far back. That was last year. That was too far away, and we're almost in February. That was too far back.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is fun to get to rant about people we love. It's fun to rant about things you don't like, but it's also very fun to rant about things you do like.
We do have a page at InSessionFilm.com where you can go back and see all of our episodes, see our topics. Every week, I end up adding more topics to the list. We have so many things that we want to discuss. So it's so nice when we get a lot of retweets and likes. Thank you to those that are listening.
Yay!
So you can follow us at InSession Film, and thank you for listening, and we'll see you at the next Women in Session.
You do things your own way. You make things your own, just the way you like them. Your bank should do that for you too. The Bank of Clark is the bank for that. From banking to lending to wealth management, when you need financial services built just for you, we're the bank for that. Find out what banking designed just for you is all about. Call 1-800-650-8723. Visit your local Bank of Clark branch today or go to bankofclark.bank. That's bankofclark.bank. We're the bank for that. Member FDIC.